The Baltimore Ravens defeat the Cincinnati Bengals 34-20 in Week 11, but the loss of Mark Andrews looms large. We talk about the win, talk about the Andrews loss, and so much more coming up on this instant reaction live edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens. We're your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here and making Locked On Ravens your first listen each and every single day. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms. That includes over in video form on YouTube. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first boss match up to $100. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Moving 100 miles a minute here on Locked On Ravens. Been a crazy evening, night, honestly. Went over to the Punchline tailgate with Jack Sullivan, all those guys. It was awesome. The Ravens beat the Bengals. Did a live stream for Bleacher Report. We're all over the place here, but the Ravens get the win. That's the important part. They move over to 8-3 on the season, drop Cincinnati to 5-5. We have a lot to talk about here on this show. So if you're here live with us, late night, we're about 12:15 Eastern right now. Thank you for tuning in. I know we got a lot to talk about in terms of the Ravens because some great comes out of this game, but also some not so great is the win, but the Andrews loss. So you can subscribe to this channel on YouTube in audio form as well. We have a great audio community, a great video community. It's been awesome building those up. We also hit 1 million total views on the YouTube page, which is just, it's awesome. I'm speechless, and thank you for all the support with that. We have the chat going. We have John Parsons saying booyah. Dylan Wilkinson in here. Raven76 B More saying what's up, KO. Dylan tried to type in the chat. He said great win. Sucks we lost the Andrews. Need likely and Cole to step up. Yep, we'll talk about all that here today on this show. So for Ravens news, analysis, updates, we have you right here. It's the same show, both audio and video, so you're not missing out on any content. You can also subscribe over on Subtext for more Locked On Ravens insider content and other Ravens news. We have Anthony in the chat. What's up, Anthony? Glad you could tune in for this one. Thank you to everybody on the late night crew, late night Locked On Ravens diving in. Let's talk about first. Obviously, I want to get to the game and then we'll move into Andrews. And the game was weird. These Thursday night games, I think the NFL loves money, right? It's a business. You got to make your money, but the product is not good for the players. And we saw that. This was an injury-marred game, which is crazy because it wasn't just the Ravens, wasn't just the Bengals. Both teams got decimated with injuries, and they were honestly decimated throughout the week with, obviously, for the Ravens, Marlon Humphrey, Ronnie Stanley. For the Bengals, Sam Hubbard, T. Higgins. But in this one, Lamar Jackson, let's start with Lamar. I mean, we can start so many places we can start. We'll start with Lamar. 16-26, 264, 2 touchdowns through the air. Had 9 carries for 54 yards. And I think it's a little more impressive considering the injury he had, which Logan Wilson, we'll talk about him, single-handedly injured 3 Ravens players, Mark Andrews, Lamar, and Odell. Now, the Lamar play was, at least to me, I haven't looked too deep in the replays yet, but from what I saw, it was less of a hip drop tackle than the Mark Andrews play, but because he was tackling him more around the ankles, but I still saw the weight go down on the ankle. So Lamar gutted it out, was definitely injured, and honestly made some of his runs more impressive. He was slipping around the field a lot of the time. So that was one aspect of the game was just injuries, but Lamar did hit on a deep shot to Odell. He missed 1 or 2, but he did hit on that deep shot to Odell. Odell played awesome football, but I thought Lamar did a solid job, all things considered. Now, the Bengals defense was not this unit to write home about. They're atrocious against the run. Honestly, not great against the pass either. And they lost guys throughout the game, but you know what? The Ravens also lost guys throughout this game. So honestly, both ways, you really have a lot to get to in this one. But rushing the ball, Gus Edwards, 12 for 62. He had 2 touchdowns also. The Gus bus is just, he's rolling through right now. He's doing incredible stuff. Lamar, I mentioned, there's 9 for 54. Keaton Mitchell, 8 for 33. Zay Flowers, 1 for 7. Justice Hill, 1 for 1. Keaton Mitchell, I thought, looked great in a lot of his snaps. Now, he had the 21-yard long, which I think was awesome. But I think for him, part of it is what coming out of college, the knock on him was he's too small. He's not as big. He's going to get caught up in the wash and stuff. But he has done a great job, in my opinion, yards after contact. Not every single play. It's not every single play. But at least at this point, Baltimore has so many other things working for them, at least in this game. Even though Mark Andrews goes down, Odell has an awesome game. Zay Flowers steps up. Nelson Aguilar with a heads-up play for a touchdown. Rashad Bateman gets in on the action. There's a lot to like about the Ravens offense, but as we will get to in the second part of the show, the Mark Andrews injury is concerning. But I'm glad that in this game, we have been talking all year, it seemed like, about wide receiver production. When were these wide receivers going to step up from a stat production perspective? And for Odell, I'm happy for him. I see Ravens 76B more saying, glad Odell got his first 100-plus yards this season, his first 100-plus yard game since 2021, I believe the NFC Championship game. And Anthony's saying doesn't want to hear anything about Joe B not being there because they beat Tyler in the playoffs. So, again, both quarterbacks suffering injuries in this game. Now, I don't know how crazy that Joe Burrow injury was before the game, but we saw the deleted Bengals clip where he had that wrap on his hand, his wrist area. And I think a Jadeveon Clowney hit aggravated that. And we'll get into the defense here because I will admit it was a little concerning with how the Ravens defense kind of got walked down earlier in the game with Joe Burrow. I think there were a couple of drives where it just felt like they were getting out physical again. But then they did what they were supposed to do against Jake Browning, right? I mean, you go in there, and what did we see last week? Deshaun Watson with a broken bone in his shoulder goes 14 of 14. Jake Browning could have come in this game, and the Ravens could have just been like, "Oh, easy peasy. We're gonna relax." But they put pressure on him. They confused him. Mike McDonald did not let up on the aggressiveness. In fact, they got more aggressive when Jake Browning came in the game, as I think they should have. With Joe Burrow, it can sometimes be hard to blitz him in certain situations, but with Jake Browning, that's an inexperienced quarterback. I think he had, one pass attempt before this game. So you knew what you were getting with him, and the game plan for them was going to be, we're going to throw the ball short, not put too much on the plate of Jake Browning, but also run the ball at Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon had a lot of good plays early in the game, but the Ravens defense realized that there's a lot to just stopping the run and then forcing Jake Browning to beat you. And obviously he could do nowhere close to that as well. So at this point, we'll kind of figure out what happens. And I see Dylan in the chat saying Zay got screwed by a Hold'em Phantom call. Yeah, very ticky-tacky, if anything. I mean, honestly, Chidobe Awuzie disengaged, and it was a tug on the inside of the jersey right on the chest plate area. But I don't know. I think that was not worthy of a penalty, in my opinion. Some phantom calls both ways for sure, but Rob, I'm going to post the highlight on Twitter probably tomorrow morning, maybe, earlier after this stream is over, because we deserve to see that Zay play again, because he cut up. Zay Flowers was cutting up on the field. Odell made a solid move. Bateman had a great play on his touchdown. So at this point, I think the Ravens do have the wide receiver trio ramping up and getting back, and that's honestly what it was going to be. Right? Because Odell got injured early in the season. Rashad Bateman got injured early in the season. It wasn't like these guys were all of a sudden going to week one and also coming back from injury, just boom, be these 1,000-yard, 10-touchdown receivers. It was never going to be that way. So I'm really glad they're starting to find their stride, find their form, which is awesome. I see Justin saying, glad to see Keaton Mitchell get used more. Yeah, it was great. And Anthony saying, did his hand look a little swollen? I'm sure, Anthony, you're talking about Joe Burrow there. It's just a little bit, just a little swollen. It was bad. And honestly, couldn't grip the football, couldn't throw the football. Once I saw that, I didn't expect them out in the second half. I figured at that point it was going to be Jake Browning from there on out, unless some miracle happened that, they get him up and feeling good on meds. But yeah, it was really bad for Burrow because it was kind of out of nowhere, but the injury itself came out of nowhere. No one kind of knew. I'd assume the Bengals will get some sort of fine, some sort of penalty for not disclosing that. He was nowhere on their injury report. So that's going to be something to watch as well. And we'll pull up team stats quickly here before moving into the second. Well, first, let's do defense quickly. Patrick Queen, Roquan Smith, 11 total and 10 total respectively. Marcus Williams, 7. And then you have Jase Medical with a sack and off. Oh, wait, he played awesome. He had a sack. Tavius Robinson gets a sack. Kyle Van Noy gets a sack too. 5 sacks for this team, which is great. Clowney, I forgot to mention him. Brandon Stevens on Jamar Chase was just lunch for Brandon Stevens, all year. 7 receptions, 43 yards, 1 touchdown Jamar Chase had against the Marlon Humphrey-less Ravens through 2 games. Team stats-wise, the Ravens hold the Bengals to 2 of 11 on third down compared to the Ravens 6 of 12. 405 total yards compared to 272 for the Bengals compared to Baltimore. The key here, though, is the Bengals actually averaged more yards per rush than the Ravens did, 5.9 compared to 5.1. But the Ravens averaged 8.6 yards per pass compared to Cincinnati's 3.8. Tied in penalties, 9 for the Ravens, 9 for the Bengals. The Ravens actually had more penalty yards, and the Ravens hold the ball for just over a minute more than the Bengals. So coming up in the second part of the show, I see John in there asking about Mark Andrews. We'll talk about him, what his loss means, so be sure to stay tuned. Plan to talk about on this instant reaction Friday morning edition of Locked On Ravens, coming to you just past midnight on the YouTube channel. And of course, you can find it anywhere you get your podcast in audio form after the fact. But first, today's episode of Locked On Ravens, or I should say that tonight's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by PrizePicks. And if you're looking for daily fantasy sports, look no further than PrizePicks. PrizePicks is awesome. And it's the most fun so many have had, doing up to 25 times the money this football season. All you have to do is select 2 or more players, pick more or less in their projected stats, and place your entry. If anybody's a basketball fan, the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League. It's a league created specifically for combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. So, for example, if you're a big LeBron James fan, you can pair him and Travis Kelce to a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made plus receptions. And if you want to play alongside some of PrizePicks favorites like rapper Meek Mill, comedian Andrew Schultz, you can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. Plus, PrizePicks offers a really cool thing called a reboot policy. That means your entries stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured. So football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. So go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code LockedOnNFL for first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code LockedOnNFL for first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. We're back. It's our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still talking with you here on late Thursday, early Friday, as the Ravens pick up a 34-20 win over the Bengals in week number 11. Again, moves the record to 8-3. Bengals fall to 5-5. Effectively, it ends the Bengals AFC North chances, right? Because the Ravens now are up 3 in the win column on Cincinnati. Not to mention they're now 4 games up because of the tiebreaker. And the Bengals division record now falls to 0-3. So if you're talking about other tiebreakers, the Ravens would have their advantage with that as well. Plus, Joe Burrow goes down. We'll see the MRI results for him. I don't think there were any updates from Zach Taylor on him after the game, but we did get an update, unfortunately, on Mark Andrews, and it was not a great one for the Ravens, as John Harbaugh says that Andrews suffered what is likely a season-ending ankle injury, and it's a big blow to the offense. And again, the play it happened, Logan Wilson with a hip drop tackle. Now, this was a textbook hip drop tackle play. And the reason defenders are, I don't know how to put it. The reason defenders are trying to kind of go this way with tackles is because they're so limited in the other ways that they can tackle. The hip drop tackle, essentially, what that definition is when you put all your weight. So you're essentially in the air trying to drag a guy down, and your weight falls on either the ankle, the leg, and it's a really dangerous play because with that, obviously the ankle or the leg can't withstand these, 220, 250, 300-pound defenders just falling on them like that. And for Andrews, you could see his ankle get caught up in it a little bit, and he goes down immediately in pain, gets the trainers, waves the trainers, and it's unfortunate. I mean, it's next man up for the Ravens for sure, but we can't discount what this loss is for them, especially when you're looking at how much of a security blanket he has been for Lamar Jackson over the course of his career. His pure target share, snap share, reception share, touchdown share, right? Everything for this team. So what happens in the absence? You got to, first of all, tight end position. Isaiah Likely is going to have to step up. He has struggled with some drops this year, some inconsistent play. We're going to see how that goes. Charlie Kohler, another option for them as well. So yeah, at this point, you're going to have those two guys step up. Maybe the Ravens sign another tight end. I'm not sure who's out there in free agency. I'll look that up for tomorrow's show. So 6 a.m. we'll have another show out here, and we'll have that as well. I don't know. It's just so tough, and it's something where, again, the Ravens have been so healthy since week 3, and now you have 2 straight weeks of some brutal injury luck for them. It's almost like the first 3 weeks of the season as well. So I'm just kind of still trying to wrap my head around it, because he is such a big loss. Honestly, outside of Lamar on the offensive side of the ball, he's probably the player that you can't afford to lose. And, that's a couple other guys too, right? Linderbaum in there, a few others, Zay maybe if you want to go that route. But Mark Andrews is one of the heart and souls of this Ravens team. And I think that it's going to be tough to you honestly can't. You can't replicate the success that he has. You're going to have to just figure out how you can get other production as well. Receiver-wise, Zay Flowers is going to get a lot more targets. Odell, Rashad Bateman. It's not just a tight end issue. It's how can the other receivers, because those targets that Andrews has, I mean, let me see if I can pull up the stats real quick for the Ravens offensively with the targets. I'll do that as we're talking. But it's such a big target share that is now out of your offense. Now I'll tweet this stat out probably after the stream or early tomorrow morning. But you essentially have, let's see, I'm literally getting it right now. Target wise, Mark Andrews, if I can find targets here quickly, 59. So Zay leads the team in targets with 68. Mark Andrews second with 59. After that, the third leading target getter on the Ravens is Odell with 35. So Zay and Mark Andrews, the target share has been pretty evenly split between the two. But then it's 35 for Odell, 25 for Aguilar, 29 for Bateman, 8 for Edwards, 10 for Likely. So again, 59 targets spread out to other guys. I think the majority of that probably goes to Zay and Odell, with some Nelson and Rashad sprinkled in there. Keaton Mitchell will probably get a couple as well. But that's tough. I mean, defenses game plan around Mark Andrews. Like, you look at the Ravens and what their game plan has been for years now, even before Zay and before Odell. It's, we have to double team Mark Andrews. His middle of the field presence is so big for them, because with other guys, you can work the middle of the field. You can do stuff with short routes, intermediate routes. So Mark Andrews has such a commanding presence over the middle of the field that teams have to bring a safety help over the top or send a linebacker on him with some extra help. Like, it's hard to defend him one-on-one. And that was kind of the whole pick your poison of this offense. If you double team Mark, well, Zay's going to be available one-on-one. And that's a nightmare for opposing defenses. So it's going to be really tough. And we'll talk about it on tomorrow's show too, a little bit. I see, we're in the chat with a bunch of Mark Andrews takes. And also, with Andrews as well, I don't know what's going on here. I see, Yahoo Sports NFL app both say Andrews suffers a serious ankle injury. Yeah, that's what John Harbaugh said. So that's what it's going to be. But I see in here as well a bunch of love for the corners, which we'll get to in the final part of the show as well. Let's finish the Mark Andrews talk, then we'll move on to the corners. I see a lot of corner talk in the chat. But at this point, you're going to have to, I think, rely on the ground game a little more too. I don't think this is just, Mark Andrews is hurt, we're going to spread the rock out. You still want to pass the ball. You still want to have that as a part of your offense, right? But you're going to have to, I think, run the ball a little more effectively if you want to make up for that. And part of it is Isaiah Likely ready. We saw in the absence of Mark Andrews last season, Likely stepped up, played a big role in most of the Buccaneers, the Saints, that NFC South stretch. But it's tough because we know the connection, and part of the Andrews connection that he has with Lamar is the street ball, the pure improvisation of his routes. He and Lamar have such a connection that they know where each other want to be, want to place the ball, where one guy's going to go. Lamar will cut, and Mark Andrews knows, I'm going to work back to him, or I'm going to go deep. I'm going to cut to the left. Because of that connection they have together. They've been working together since rookies, came into the league together in 2018. So that's a big loss. I think the Ravens, with the Humphrey injury, the Stanley injury, it was very fortunate that those guys were not injured to the severity their replays looked. The Andrews injury, I didn't really like. The ankle got caught up in there, but I didn't know how severe it was going to be. This is tough though. Guys are going to have to step up in all 3 phases. Honestly, special teams has been a little interesting this season, but offensively, it's now the Isaiah Likely show with some Charlie Kohler sprinkled in. I'm sure we'll talk to Jase Medical next week. He'll be banging his Charlie Kohler drum like he always is. And yeah, I mean, we'll kind of figure out how this offense looks because we've seen it without Mark Andrews, but we haven't seen it for a long time without. I mean, I'll pull up Andrews' stats quickly here in terms of his injury availability because I don't think he's missed that many games over the course of his career. If I can't find it here, I'll look season wise. But yeah, he's played in 16, 15, 14, 17, 15. So he's missed, I think, what is that? Less than 10 games over the course of his career. I'm not a math guy, by the way, so you can correct me on that if I'm wrong. But that's a big blow. I think we haven't seen a Mark Andrews less offense for as sustained of a period as we're going to see here. And in the playoffs, that's what worries me. But I don't want to take away too much from the game because I still think that Baltimore did get the job done. And coming from the final part of the show, I see Anthony saying, take a breath during the sponsors. I gotta roll through them, Anthony. We'll be talking about this team, where they go from here with Andrews, also continuing to recap that Ravens and Bengals game. So be sure to stay tuned for everything we have coming up here on this live instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens as we round out the show, coming to you again late Thursday, early Friday on the show. First, though, this episode is brought to you by DoorDash. And I don't know about you, but I'm a big food guy. I just love food in general. And sometimes I'm watching a game and I'll want to get something to eat. Go to the fridge, get a snack, and whether it's a timeout, 2-minute warning, halftime, I'll go and there's nothing. There's nothing for me to eat. That's where DoorDash comes in because you can go and get anything you want over on DoorDash for the most part. And why root for the Ravens on an empty stomach, right? You can order DoorDash and save on football watch party favorites. So maybe for a watch party, you want the game day classics like pizza, wings, soda, burgers. DoorDash, you can get it all delivered without missing the game. Or if you're a snack guy, I'm a big snack guy. You can order chips, dips, nachos, everything you need to make your own nachos. DoorDash, you can delivered all without missing the game. And in Baltimore, there are a lot of awesome spots. Maybe you want to get sushi. Sushi Han is a place that I'm a big fan of. Maybe you're a pizza guy. Underground Pizza is a great one for me. So kick back and kick off with unbeatable deals and everything you need for the watch party tailgate. Get 50% off of the $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app. Enter code LOCK23. Subject to change. Terms apply. Plus, you can get prepared before game day, stock up on your favorite appetizers, and order all your tailgate gear on DoorDash and get ready to watch your team win this 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app. Enter code LOCK23. Subject to change. Terms apply. One more time, don't forget to use code LOCK23, 50% off of the $10 value on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and spend $15 or more. Subject to change. Terms apply. We're back, rounding out Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you, talking Ravens, talking Bengals, talking Mark Andrews. Big story, multiple of them. Ravens beat the Bengals 34-20 in Week 11, moved to 8-3. Mark Andrews likely done for the season. According to John Harbaugh, we have the chat popping right now, especially considering it's late. It's about 12:30, 12:45 right now. So I appreciate everybody who's watching live with me here on YouTube. Again, these will go in audio form immediately after the fact. So be sure, if you missed it live 1 week, you can check it out either the replay on YouTube or after the fact. You can subscribe for free, YouTube, video form, audio form, anywhere you get your shows. We are 5 days a week. We'll be coming at you live. Well, not live, but it'll be another episode of Friday morning, just a couple hours from now, 6 a.m. Eastern time. We'll be talking Mark Andrews a little bit more as well. Now, we got some corner love in the chat here. Let's talk about the corners quickly. Dylan saying, great game from Darby. If Humphrey remains out, Darby should be the corner opposite Stevens. Yassine hasn't been great recently. I agree. Ronald Darby has stepped up, and this isn't a new thing either. I mean, Darby was great for him early in the season when Marlon was down. He and Stevens have both stepped up. I agree with Yassine. He hasn't been really good as a Raven. Had that one great drive against the Bengals, the big Jamar Chase play, right? I mean, I think that's where people are going to remember Yassine is he broke up a pass in the end zone on Jamar Chase, which was a great play, but has had a couple of big penalties, had some completions on him. Darby should be your guy 100% as well. And I see Nana Ravate saying Darby's been balling, and Jeff saying Rock should only be allowed to play special teams, no more defensive snaps. I think they just have to. I mean, I was banging. If you were listening to me, if you were an everydayer on Locked On Ravens here, you knew that I wanted a corner badly. Not like I knew they weren't getting. I mean, Surtain wasn't coming. Jair Alexander wasn't coming. It was like, get a Rasul Douglas. Get a Dante Jackson, right? A guy who cost you a fifth. I know Rasul Douglas went for what, a third and a fifth. But I don't know who else the Ravens can play. I mean, is Pepe Williams coming back anytime soon? Doesn't look like it. Or there's Washington. I don't know. Arthur Miller's been playing great from the slot. But, yeah, I don't know at this point. I forgot about this. Good point by Nana Ravate saying, I say go get Vokalek off the practice squad. Yes, Vokalek will have a role. I think that's what's going to happen here. Honestly, I forgot all about Vocal. Like, I don't know how I did that. So big shout out for the reminder there. Thank you. Let's see. N Bain saying on the bright side, we have one game in the next 24 days. Yep, 100%. I was just going to put that stat out there. Good stat. The Ravens have their mini bye before playing the Chargers. And then after the Chargers game, they have their full bye. So although it's not going to mean enough for maybe like a Mark Andrews, for a guy like Lamar, I haven't, if anyone can update me, I haven't seen what John Harbaugh had to say on Lamar. But for Lamar, for Odell, for Patrick Queen, some of those guys who have suffered some dings, some bumps and bruises along the way. Yeah, I mean, at this point, the Ravens will have one game and then a bunch of rest time, which is huge for them because they really haven't had that. For teams like the Browns, who had their bye super early in the season, they don't have that luxury. They get the chance to rest early, but now they have to go and play the full season. I would have preferred the bye maybe around week 10, week 11. I think that's a perfect, like anywhere from week 9 to week 11 is like a perfect spot for me. Week 13 is a little late because you play so much consecutive football, but the Thursday night game into the mini bye, into the full bye is a huge thing for them 100%. Colin saying, how badly is Lamar hurt? I don't know. I mean, obviously not enough to miss any snaps, but I'm sure he has suffered some sprain of some sort. And I think my hot take is by the time the bye is over, he'll probably be okay. Maybe not 100%, but he'll be okay. Anthony saying, hold up, I thought OBJ was washed. Yeah, I think, what was that? That was the top of the conversation early, wasn't it? Again, was the Odell contract an overpay? Probably, right? We can admit that. But it was a necessary overpay to get somebody to Baltimore like Odell. And look, I was never expecting prime New York Giants Odell. I don't think anybody should have been expecting that. But if this is the production they can get from him, an explosive playmaker who can take the ball for yards after the catch and make some plays and have to be accounted for, that's 100%. That's what you can get here. Tyler's saying Darby not playing more this season has been criminal guys balling. Tyler, this is a point, actually, I wanted to talk about this. I'm glad you brought it up because I thought Darby played really well early in the season, right? Like, again, Marlon was down, and I think that Darby played awesome. And then Humphrey comes back, and we really don't see him. We really don't see Ronald Darby. And I'm just like, where did he go? And he comes in and balls out in this game. And I'm like, okay, well, he's balled out the opportunities he's gotten. Where has he been? I think part of that has been Humphrey comes back. You have Stevens. Well, let's play it in the slot. You don't play typical base, so you're having three safeties with Marcus Williams, Geno Stone, and Kyle Hamilton. You want to put two inside linebackers on the field with Roquan and Queen. They're not playing four corners as much. I mean, I think in a rotation, it'd be really valuable to have a guy like Darby, but I'm glad you made the point, Tyler, because I was also wondering where Darby went. Brett saying no Andrews is a huge loss. Yeah, 1,000%. It's going to be tough for them to recover. Not saying they can't, but he's a big part, a massive part of what they do on the offensive side of the ball. Nana Rave saying, like, we can handle the top tight end spot. He needs to be on the field. Practice makes perfect. Not been impressed with Lola. Not at all. Kohler, did you mean? That might be Kohler there. But, yeah, I mean, this is going to be a big step-up moment for Likely as well. Jeff saying Likely was incredible last season when Andrews was out for a few games, and Tyler's saying this offense is about to become a run, play action, deep shot offense with no Andrews, running thin on guys, work in the middle. Yeah, that's the point I made earlier, Tyler. Good point, because Mark Andrews is such a presence over the middle of the field. He is the guy over the middle where it allows guys to work on the outside, especially when you have to put so much attention to a guy like Andrews in the middle of the field. So I expect them to run more. I agree. Play action, read option, whatever you want to call it, going to be big as well for him. It's going to be interesting, 1,000%. Anthony saying Likely is so strong and physical. I don't know if you noticed, but he doesn't go down easy. The man got a pancake block without looking. Tyler saying Likely isn't the same blocker as Andrews, doesn't have a great track record of trust with Lamar. Hopefully with more time it'll be. I mean, yes, I think the thing that I've been most impressed with Mark Andrews in his career, the thing with him as a pass catcher has been incredible. But coming into the league, for those who kind of kept up with Andrews in his career, the track arc for him, he was known as not a great blocker. And he's worked on that aspect. Again, I think a lot of it was when Nick Boyle and Andrews were kind of that tandem together. You can even throw Hurst in there as well if you want to, Aiden Hurst. The gameplay for defenses was run to the side that Boyle's not on and that Andrews is. Andrews struggled early in his career as a blocker, but he has added that to his game and has become a very good blocker. Likely has been okay in spurts, has had some struggles in others as well. So I think Likely is super strong. I mean, I agree with both Anthony and Tyler. Likely is strong, but I think he's not the blocker Andrews is here as well. Tyler's saying, is it a 0% chance Mark comes back to the playoffs? I'm not sure at this point. The only thing I'm going off of is that Harbaugh said that it's likely a season-ending ankle injury. I mean, we'll know more tomorrow probably, but that doesn't sound great. Maybe miraculously, if it's a 2-month thing, does he come back in the AFC Championship game if the Ravens get that far? Does he come back in the Super Bowl? The only hope there is that it's maybe a 2 to 3 month thing and he can come back on the earlier side of that timeline. But I'm not sure. I'm not a doctor and I don't know the particulars of the injury to give you a pure diagnosis on that. Ben's saying, I really think the offense will adapt with likely Kohler and Vokalek. Look at how they did in the second half versus how they played right after Mark got hurt. It took a bit, but they have the plays. And I think it's going to be an adjustment for the Ravens, but also an adjustment for defenses, right? You don't have to game plan for an Andrews anymore. So how do you do that? I think Tyler says it will adapt, but no Andrews is huge loss against good defenses that can rush the passer and force it out quickly. I agree. Again, I agree with both Ben and Tyler. The offense will adapt, but the offense is not going to be as good without Andrews in it. Like it can have aspects that are fine with Andrews out. Like I'm not saying the season's done because Andrews is done, right? I'm not saying that, but Andrews is a huge loss and that loss cannot be understated at this point. Dylan saying Aguilar being in the right place at the right time was awesome. Yeah, that was crazy, right? Jermaine Pratt makes a great play, honestly. Aguilar gets it, turns on the burners, and goes there as well. It's awesome. It's right place, right time. Sometimes the ball bounces your way, sometimes it doesn't. But at this point, that's the one that bounced. Tyler saying, do you expect likely to just take most of Mark's snaps, or do you think we might see a big improvement from Kohler? It's just going to be, I think, next man up on the ladder. So Andrews kind of slides into the Andrews spot. Kohler slides into the likely spot. Vokalek slides into the Kohler spot. I don't know if they're going to run tandem there with those guys. I'd assume likely gets more snaps than Kohler, but we're going to see. Stefan's saying Ravens have the depth this year at every position. We're used to playing injured or with backup players. We have years of experience for sure. But I still think that, I mean, I agree with you, Stefan, but the Ravens haven't had an offense without Mark Andrews consistently for the entire Andrews era. So I'm interested to see how it adjusts 100%. Anthony saying just on the dub cam of my GE. PQ said Rowe was not in a good mood. Russell, we didn't finish the way we needed to finish. Yeah, I mean, it take me back to the Detroit game. Ravens win that game. What was it? 38-6 was that the final score? And all the players could say was, we're not happy with how we finished. We didn't do this right. They were focused on what went wrong as opposed to what went right. And that to me is a mindset of a Super Bowl champion team, or at least a Super Bowl contender. Tyler saying, I hope they move way a bit from 2 tight ends with Andrews out and go spread with Mitchell on the field to play more. I mean, you could even go 4 wide if you wanted to with Odell, Rashad, Aguilar, and Zay. Like you could do that too. I mean, you could put Isaiah in the slot. I mean, I agree. I think 2 tight ends it's more threatening with Mark and Isaiah as opposed to Isaiah and Kohler. And that's not me trying to knock any of those guys, but we know the threat Andrews is. And there are a bunch of different looks you can have. The Mitchell thing on the outside would be awesome, or maybe just in the backfield, you can go 4 wide with Mitchell in the backfield, which would be cool. So plenty of opportunities for the Ravens to revamp their offense, but the Ravens beat the Bengals 34-20 in week 11. They lose Mark Andrews. Will be right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens. I see Tyler saying, is there any big name tight end out there the Ravens might potentially sign? I don't know. I'm going to look into that for tomorrow's show, Tyler, so be sure to tune into that one. I haven't had a chance to look. I've been moving 1,000 miles a minute here, so I'll get a list of guys as well. Tyler saying Gronk season. That'd be something. Tyler, I might run with that. That might be my agenda, my joke agenda. So I might put a couple tweets out on that. But that's all I have for you today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in on this early Friday morning live stream. Coming up, we'll be right back here a few hours, 6 a.m. Eastern time. So if you're just finishing up listening to this and it's past 6 a.m., be sure to check out tomorrow's episode. I haven't recorded it yet, but I'm sure it'll be a good one. We'll be talking to Mark Andrews, talking about that Bengals game a little more too. So be sure to stay tuned for all that. Be sure to subscribe, audio form, video form, the whole 9 yards. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.